Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at the English Moor or the Mock Marriage, a comedy as it was often acted with general applause by Her Majesty's servants by Richard Brome. It is, as the title will suggest, it is dealing explicitly with race in some fashion. We don't know precisely because we haven't read the play yet, but a casual scan through does yield a certain amount of racialized language and depiction that will be problematic almost inevitably. The question that we will be asking is, of course, whether the play does something interesting with that or whether it is just out and out just straightforwardly racist, and what we would do with the text going forward. There may, of course, be other problematic elements. It's the early modern period, so let's expect there's probably going to be some misogyny in there as well, and some other stuff, so we shall see. To find out the answer to this question and many other questions about what this play is doing, reading the prologue and Quicksands today is...
Sarah in Germany.
Reading Phillis is...
Muted.
Aliki in Athens.
Reading Vincent is...
Kyle in Tucson.
Reading Edmond and Buzard is...
Aaron, coming from the Pacific Northwest of the U.S.
Reading Arnold is...
Lynn, also in the northwestern United States.
Reading Dionysia and Millicent is...
Alexandra, inside the sun.
Reading Arthur is...
Mark in the Midwest United States.
Reading Rafe and Mercury is...
Lois in London.
Reading Theophilus is...
Alan in Suffolk.
Reading Lucy is...
Emma Kemp in London.
Reading Testy is...
Rachel in Canada.
And reading Nathaniel is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I hope my mic works because it's being fussy. Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed we will continue to hear you throughout the rest of this. I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and generally keeping things moving forward. And it's a big room, so I want people to certainly share their thoughts, but do keep things pithy if you can. So without further ado, we're going to dive into the prologue. Prologue away, please.
Most noble, fair, and courteous, to ye all welcome and thanks we give, that you would call, and visit your poor servants that have been so long and pitiless, unheard, unseen. Welcome, you'll say your money that does do, dissembling is a fault, we say so too, and your long absence was no fault of your, but our sad fate to be so long obscure. Jove and the Muses grant, and all good men, we feel not that extremity again, the thought of which yet chills us with a fear that we have bought our liberty too dear. For should we fall into a new restraint, our hearts must break, that did before but faint. You, noble, great, and good ones, that vouchsafe to see a comedy and sometimes laugh, or smile at wit and harmless mirth, as thus ye have begun to grace and succour us. Be further pleased to hold us still upright for our relief and for your own delight, to move for us to those high powers whom we submit unto in all humility. For our proceeding, and will make it good to utter nothing may be understood offensive to the state, manners, or time, we will as well look to our necks as climb. You hear our suit, obtain it, if you may, then find us money, and we'll find you play.
And that's it for the prologue. I'm just wondering about that reference at the beginning about not being about. So I'm wondering, is it a plague thing or is it a changeover of company? This is 1637, and it's the Queen's men, whose patron is Queen Henrietta Maria. But there are two Queen Henry Marias play as far as I'm aware. This is not my end of history, so I am just scrabbling around for data on that. But yeah, we're quite late in our timing period. We're not into the Civil War yet, but we're into Charles's reign, and it's not necessarily going great. Anyway, Alan.
I'm just wondering whether that might actually be because the print date is after the Civil War, I think. And I'm just wondering whether the prologue may have been added later.
I doubt it. I mean, prologues tend to be either detachable things specifically for an occasion, or very specifically for individual performances. But 1658, you wouldn't have any performances yet, so it's not like you're writing. If it was the 1660s for the printing, then I might go with that. Yes, it's a revival prologue, but I don't think that's what's going on there. I think it's just something's happened with the company, or something's happened in there's been a break because of plague. I'm not. It bounced along quite nicely, but it also just feels very specific, and therefore not necessarily very usable. Unless we have a plague or something to throw it in for. But we had one of those. We don't want another. Lois.
Yeah, it does. It feels very nervous. I mean, as if something or other has been going wrong. I mean, I don't know whether they were in any sort of trouble for something they'd actually performed before. It's also, I think, already a rather difficult period. I seem to recall another one, which I think is a couple of years later, where they say London has gone to York. In other words, half the court is up in York instead of in London. And already people may have been feeling uneasy, retiring to the country. I don't know, just getting out. It doesn't feel good. It feels pre-war.
But it's a comedy, so let's have fun. Eric.
Well, there is that. I just like the last line. If you give us money, we'll give you entertainment. So,
it's the system. It is the system. So let's find out what this comedy is doing with all the warnings that we had in place. Act 1, Scene 1. Enter Arthur and Dionysia.
Dear sister, bear with me.
I may not, brother. What suffer you to pine and peak away in your unnatural melancholy fits, which have already turned your purer blood into a toad-pool dye? I am ashamed upon my life almost to call you brother, but nature has her swing in me, I must. Therefore I crave you, as you are my brother, to shake this dull and muddy humour off by visiting the streets and quit your chamber, which is a sickness to you.
Ah, my sister.
I can say, oh, my brother, too, to show you how it becomes you. I have the same cause, equally with yourself, to spend my life in solitary mourning, and would do it, could it make good our loss. My honoured father... A tear has escaped me there, but that's by the by. And more of anger against the enemy and his forever cursed posterity that robbed us of a father than of sorrow for what we know is unrecoverable. But to sit grieving over his memory in a resolved silence as you do, killing your own blood while a vein holds any proceeding from the flesh that drew out his, is merely idle. Mingle then your grief with thought of brave revenge, and do it not in private meditation in your chamber, but bear it out till it proceed to action.
By pouring blood on blood.
By quenching fire of high revenge with base unmanly blood, by stopping of our father's cureless wounds which still bleed fresh in our vexed memories, with the proud flesh of him that butchered ours.
We know he lives not that has slain our father. Or if he lives, 'tis not where I cannot reach him. 'Tis where I cannot reach him. He ne'er saw English harbour since his sword unfortunately had the better of my father.
But his son lives.
Good sister, cool thy passion with reasonable means.
Oh, where's the spirit that my slain father had? Had you no part of it? Must I now play the man whilst you inherit only my mother's puling disposition?
I know thy drift, good sister Dionysia, is not unto revenge or blood, but to stir up some motion in me, to prevent the danger a sad retiredness may bring upon me.
Be it as you think it, so you will abroad and make the house no longer dark with sighing.
Enter Rafe.
Now, sir, the news with you?
News worth your hearing, merely to laugh at. Good for nothing else.
Is the old ruffian 10 and hanged that slew my father? Or his son brain battered? Or his daughter made a prostitute to shame?
How merciless are your wishes!
Lady, no. But as I was hankering at an ordinary, in quest of a new master, for this here will never last to a new livery unless he were merrier, I heard the bravest noise of laughter at a wicked accident of marriage that was chopped up this morning.
What? Marriage? Quickly!
Who do you think has married fair Mistress Millicent?
Theophilus. I could name him, though his father was fatal unto mine. Was sure unto her?
Yes, but without a priest. She has slipped his hold and is made fast enough unto another, for which fine Master Theo so whines and chafes and hangs the head more than he would do for his father were he hanged, as you did wish for laughing news e'en now. There's sport for you.
It does me good to hear of any cross that may torment their family. I wish joy to the man that did beguile him of her, whate'er he be.
But who has married her?
Thence springs the jest. Old Master Quicksands, sir, the bottomless devourer of young gentlemen, he that has lived till past threescore a bachelor, by 80 in the 100, he that has undone by mortgages and underbuyings so many gentlemen that they all despaired of means to be revenged.
But where's your jest?
The jest is that they now have found that means, as they suppose, by making of him cuckold. They're laying their heads together in every corner, contriving of his horns, and drinking health to the success. And there were sport for you now, if you were anybody.
All abroad, however.
It's nobly said. Take courage with you, brother.
And yet methinks I know not how to look the wide world in the face. Thus, on the sudden, I would fain get abroad, yet be unknown.
For that, sir, look you, I have here, by chance, a false beard, which I borrowed with a purpose to have worn it, and put a jest upon your sadness.
Does it do well with me?
Arthur puts on the beard.
You'll never have one of your own so good. You look like Hector.
Go fetch my sword and follow me.
Be sure you carry a strict eye o'er his actions and bring me a true account.
I warrant you, mistress.
Do, and I'll love thee everlastingly. Why, now you are my brother.
Farewell, sister.
Exit Rafe and Arthur.
I hope he has some stratagem afoot in our revenge to make his honour good. It is not grief can quit a father's blood.
And exit. So this feels very much like a comedy, apart from the stuff that feels like it should be in a revenge tragedy. But that's not to say it isn't quite comic. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here, and someone's brought on a beard randomly. There's always that. We've got the standby disguise beard, so we're gonna have some disguising for better or ill. Mark.
Yeah, it feels like you come in with these two siblings, one of whom is coming in like it's a revenge tragedy, and one of whom is coming in like it's a comedy, which is a fun little thing there.
Yeah, and really coming in hard with the tragedy vibes, which really potentially makes it incredibly funny the way that's going, because the other one's just standing there going, "Oh, really? Must we? Lynn."
Yeah, and it's kind of gender reversed to our expectations. Is that the son is the one who's just sort of languishing, and the sister is the one who the sister / daughter is the one who wants him to get off his duff and avenge our father. Even if the guy who killed him is dead, we'll kill his son. So I mean, I think that's also kind of supposed to be funny that the woman is being more aggressive than the man. But we were ticking off lots of early modern bingo. We've got a disguise. We've got the possibility of cuckolding. Got the old man and the young wife.
Yeah, it's throwing all the things in there, and I have to say I am full of hope. now. I start off with the title, and
Well,
my hope is not high, and then we have this, and I'm going, oh, potential. This is throwing, and I think it's playing also with expectations as well, in the sense of it. It knows these are quite stock, things, that someone coming in vowing revenge and someone that these are all things that people have seen before, but it's doing it in a slightly interesting way, and I'm curious. Alexandra.
Two quick interesting things about that. At least to begin with, she has more to say than him, which is uncustomary. And also, for people who are not reading this with us, this is in verse, and there are sort of joined lines, verse fragments that continue from each other. So metrically, it's doing something very interesting, where it's kind of speeding itself on, which is very nice to read. I enjoyed also the way that the language is framed. It's not complex, it's not difficult to kind of parse, even though the thought processes might be more complex.
Yes, if you're just sort of scanning it and you're looking at the way some of these the caesura are functioning, and the way the lines are run on, it could feel like it's fiddly, and we've tripped over odd syntax before in the past from this sort of end of history. This play is not doing any of those. There's no problems so far. It feels like people are dancing along the lines quite nicely. So that feels like it's tripping off the tongue in a quite accessible way, which is very useful. Excellent point. Aaron, and then we'll move on.
I'm not entirely sure how to say this. I like how we're watching Dionysia perform for her brother. Like, I like this little turn at the end. Like, she's very much trying to drum him up, and then he says, well, fine, I'll go do revenge. She goes, no, you're my brother. Great, go on. And he leaves the stage, and she's like, God, I hope he has a plan. Like, we're watching... like, because her fortunes hinge on him. Like, she's actually being she's basically running the family at this point, right? She's now saying, I got to get this guy to go do stuff, because everything about how we live on after this will depend on him manning up. So I thought it was I liked the scene. I was very engaged by it, and I thought there was a lot of good stuff going on in it.
Lois, very briefly, Lois and then Eric.
Well, she also is asking Rafe to keep an eye on him and tell her what's going on, so she doesn't even altogether trust him. That's really odd, to put that much faith in the servant.
Yes, well, we'll find out how much you should trust. Eric.
I was just going to say that I like how, like, the beginning of the scene where you don't know what the problem is, but you're dropped in it right. Like, it's kind of in medias res, but not exactly. It's kind of, bear with me, and it's like, no, just shut up and listen to me. And go do the thing I told you to do like 10 minutes ago or whatever. And you can kind of imagine that this is something that happened before, even not necessarily with, obviously, revenging their father's death, but just their relationship probably hinges on the same sort of dynamics from before the play starts.
I'm afraid I do need to move us on, so hold on to those thoughts for future use. Act 1, Scene 2, enter Nathaniel and Phillis.
Prithee be answered and hang off of me. I have no more to say to you in the way you wot on, Phillis.
Nor do I seek to you in that way which you wot on, wanton sir. But to be honest and to marry me. You have done too much the other way already.
I wish you were more thankful, Mistress Phillis, to one has taught you a trade to live upon. You're not the first by 20 I have taught it that describe well the world.
There are so many such teachers in the world, and so few reformers, that the world is grown so full of female frailties, the poor harlotries can scarcely live by one another, and yet you would have me thrust in among them.
I do not urge you, take what course you please, but look not after me. I am not marked for matrimony, I thank my stars.
Should I run evil courses, you are the cause, and may in time curse your own act in it. You'll find the undoing of an honest maid your heaviest sin upon your bed of sickness. 'Twill cost your soul the deepest groan it fetches, and in that hope I leave you.
Exit Phillis.
Farewell, wagtail, marry thee, quotha. That's wise work indeed. If we should marry every wench we lie with, 'twere after 6 week with us. Marry, love, forbid, when 2 is enough to hang 1.
Enter Vincent and Edmond.
Nate, we have sought diligently for fear of the news that is abroad should fly before us.
What news, what flying fame do you labor with?
News that makes all the gallants of the town fly out of their little wits. They are so eager upon the joy. I mean, such youthful gallants as have or sold or mortgaged or been cheated by the grave patron of arch cozenage, whose sad misfortune we are come to sing. Shall I need to name him to thee?
Oh, the old rascal Quicksands. Speak, good Vince, what has he hanged himself? Speak quickly, Bridie.
Worse by half, man. Durst thou hear a news whose mirth will hazard cracking of a rib?
Aye, and it be too. Here's hoops enough besides to hold my drink in. Pray, Bridie, speak. What mischief has come upon him?
I pray thee, guess again.
Has somebody overreached him in his way of damnable extortion, and he cut his throat or swallowed poison?
10 times worse than that, too.
Is he then hoisted into the Star Chamber for his notorious practices, or into the High Commission for his blacker arts?
Worse than all this.
Pax, keep it to yourself then, if you can think it be too good for me. Why did you set me a longing? You cry worse and 10 times worse, and know as well as I, the worse it is to him, the better welcome ever to me. And yet you tell me nothing.
He has married a young wife.
Has he, Kadzooks?
We bring you no comfort, we.
Ne'er go find sport. Ha! What is she? Would he have had my wench? Was here even now? What is she he has married? Prithee, quickly.
One much too good for him.
The beauteous Millicent, driven by the tempest of her uncle's will, is like a pinnace forced against the rock.
But he'll never split her. That's the best on it. I hope she'll break his heart first. Gentlemen, I thank you for your news and know what I will presently go do.
Pray stay a little.
And take us with you. What will you go do?
That which we can all at once. Do not hold me.
We came to visit a plot. We've
cast of pudding. How long have they been married?
But this morning.
But you'll have come too late. Ne'er go, 'tis a shame he was not cuckolded before dinner.
That had been a fine first course at a wedding feast indeed. A little patience.
Right, let me take my course for supper yet.
The business longs to us as much as you. He has wronged us all alike. He has cozened us as much as you.
He has made me so poor that my Pajor now claims marriage of me.
The case
Sorry,
is ours.
Aliki.
The case is ours. His wrongs are common to us. So shall his wife be. Can we purchase her? Did we bring you the news for you to run and prevent us, do you think?
Pardon my zeal, good gentlemen, which only considered but the fitness of the act, and that 'tis more than time twere done in faith.
Enter Theophilus and Arnold.
And see, here comes a fourth man that has lost more on her part than we upon the bridegroom's.
He's very sour and sad. 'Tis crept upon him by his untoward accident.
Would anger any man to be nosed of such a match, but I'll remove his sorrow. Gentle Theophilus, you are well met. Your sorrow is familiar with all in the large loss of your betrothed love. But, sir, be comforted. You have our pity and our revenge to ease you. 'Tis decreed her husband shall instantly be a cuckold.
Most sinfully thou liest, and all that give breath to that foul opinion.
Draw and fight.
What do you mean?
Give me that thought from you, nay, from you all, or I'll rip you for it.
Zooks, what mean you?
Hold, sir, forbear.
I'll have that thought out first.
I say he does deserve to be a cuckold. Let him be what he will, a pox upon him.
So say we all.
What's that to ill in her? I stand upon that point. Man's evil merits no warrant for a woman's dishonesty. I say, had she a man 40 degrees beneath his undeservings, 'twere more possible for him to deceive her with a good life than she him with a wicked.
I say so too, but then I say again, the more's the pity.
Do and undo.
He hurts him.
Now your bitch has bit me. I say he will be one, he shall be one, I'll make him one myself.
Enter Arthur in his false beard. He sides with Theophilus.
And we'll both help him.
Exeunt Nathaniel, Vincent, Edmond.
Why, here's trim stuff! Help, ho! Murder!
This is oppression, gentlemen, an unmanly one.
Thought I'd exited. What
Yeah.
devil's this raised? Fall off, it is an ill business.
And once again, exit Nathaniel.
Have you no hurt, sir?
No, I'm confident.
By your favor, I will see.
Arnold searches Theophilus.
What fortune's this? I fought against friends to save mine enemy, but I hope neither know me. I desire to rest hid to my friends for my offence to them, and to mine enemy till I make him dearer.
Exit Arthur.
I told thee there was none.
I'm glad it proves so.
Where's the gentleman?
Do you not know him, sir?
Not I. 'Tis the first time that e'er I saw him. To my remembrance. Yes, he fought for me. Shrew and thy idler care that made me lose him. What should he be that could so fight for me, and yet not care for my company? Shrew my heart, why should he use me thus? Shall we sick to think on it? I'm made beholding now to I know not whom, and I'm the worst to sue or seek to a man.
That scurvy between proud and bashful quality you are famous for, as t'other toy that haunts you.
What's that?
Why, to be deadly angry, sir, at least occasion, and friends as quickly, hot and cold in a breath. Well, you are angry now with him that fought for you, I warrant you.
In troth I am, and friends with them I fought with. He used me peevishly to leave me so, ere I could thank him.
So 'tis that I told you.
But did you mark the humanity of my gentleman? Because she's disposed by her self-willed uncle on that unworthy Quicksands. Devil take him. They thought 'twould sound like music in my ears to hear her disgrace sung, when her fair honour is all I have to love. Now she's took from me, and that they go about to rob me of. Heaven grant me patience. Oh, my slaughtered father, I am thy son, and know by thy infirmity.
Methinks, sir, his example should allay you. Impatience was his ruin.
We'll see. We see thieves daily hang for robberies, yet some go on still in the practice. What a fine is set upon the head of foul adultery, and yet our neighbours' wives can hardly scape us. There's laws against extortion and sad penalties set upon bribes, yet great man's hands are their forefathers' itch. Prisons are filled with bankrupts, yet we see how crafty Mercury chance often wrong their credits, and Londoners fly to live at Amsterdam. Nothing can banish nature. That's the moral.
It was indeed your father's known infirmity, and ever incident to the noblest natures. But of your father, is there yet no hope of better news?
No, certainly he's slain.
I have not heard a story of more wonder that two such men, of such estates and years, having lived always friends and neighbors nearly, should at the last fall out so mortally on a poor cast of bowls. What was they sought?
It's uncertain. All we heard of them was they rode forth, 'tis now a whole year past, singly to end their quarrel. But to what part of the kingdom or the world they took, we can by no inquiry find or hear. Of either of them, sure they crossed the seas, both are slain.
You speak poor comfort, sir.
I speak as my heart finds. She's gone forever too. Her heart's desire be with her.
Now he's there again.
In my poor sister's sickness. That torments me. Never in health since our dear father left us.
Now there.
How shall I do to see these men again? I shall not be at rest till I be friends with them.
Why, here's the noble nature still. 'Twill show itself.
I'll seek him out. Nathaniel always loved me.
Exit Theophilus.
Here's an unsettled humour. In these fits he'll ne'er be mad, nor well in his wits.
And exit. Okay, a lot of interesting stuff going on there. A lot of stuff. It's quite a long scene. I feel a trim here and there. There are bits where it sort of got a little lost in itself. But there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of interesting stuff, and I see hands. I'll go Aliki, then Lynn.
So we started out with our father's dead, some other guy killed him who has a son. Now we find out that both fathers are in fact missing and not dead, presumed dead. Well, obviously they're not going to come back because,
no, of course, they're definitely dead. They would never come back, ever. No.
Mm-hmm. And we also have the parallelism that this brother also has a sister. So we have a pair of brother and sisters and their warring fathers. Very interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
And I love the way that Arthur, he comes in with his false beard and immediately saves the person he's supposed to be injuring. And he's just like, oh God, I hope nobody finds out. I'm never going to live this down. What? No wonder she didn't trust him. So, Lynn.
Yeah, that wasn't very well. It wasn't. The motivation of that wasn't clear. I guess it's because it's like 3-on-1. Theophilus is fighting all of his friends. And Arnold thinks not. Arthur thinks that doesn't seem fair. But so yeah, I was going to say, this is how this is a comedy and not a revenge tragedy. The father's not really dead. Nobody's dead. And I wonder, since Millicent is already married, if like the brother and sister are going to end up like Dionysia marries Theophilus and Arthur marries Theophilus's sister, so that we get everybody matched up in the end. So yeah, and the timing on this is good. It fakes you out just long enough for you to experience that, but then a couple scenes later, if you figure, oh wait, Theophilus's father didn't kill Arthur's father after all. There's actually no evidence of that. Dionysia is just a little quick on the trigger there. So yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yes. Erin, then Mark.
It's just strange to me that it's like an acting challenge. They don't give him an aside or anything. Like he doesn't come on, and Arthur doesn't come on and say like, oh, what's this? These three men are trying. Like there's nothing to instrument it. They're just like, he comes on. He comes on, sees what's happening, and starts fighting. Like it gives the actor a lot to convey in about half a second.
Yeah, it's it's not helped by the slightly out of sync and not quite right helpful stage directions that made that whole burble somewhat confusing. Mark, and then Alan.
I enjoy the beginning of this scene, or the early parts of the scene after Theophilus enters, that it's like these dudes are just like being kind of standard douchey early modern guys who are like, we hate the old guy who's married this woman, so like we're gonna sleep with her to get back at him. Ha 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 ha. And that the guy who like loved her and wanted to marry her comes in and they're just like, isn't that a great idea, man? And he's like, no, starts fighting them. Being like, why would that, it's like, how, doesn't that punish her more than him? But like more importantly to him, it feels like it's like, this is the woman I loved we're talking about. What's wrong with you people?
Yeah, we needed this reaction in the play we read last week, let's be honest. Because similar but slightly lower stakes situation where, yeah, someone needed that reaction and he just was standing there going... So yeah, that we haven't talked about the very opening of the scene as well with Phillis, who's sort of going with very really, I mean, it's not making us like Nathaniel very much, but it was a dynamic scene and you got the characters really nicely. I'll go to Alan, then Alexandra, and I think someone else was waving, but I forget.
Yeah, I think that sequence would probably make much more sense staged.
Yeah.
Because you could actually see the formation of people on the stage. And I think it is simply a question of he sees three again one and says, no, that ain't That ain't cricket.
Alexandra. And then Kyle.
Yes, relating to that. First, before I forget, I just wanted to say I love that my understanding of the father's quarrel is that they had some sort of gambling disagreement or disagreement over a game, and they sort of decided to have a duel about it, and then went off to find a good place to do it and never came back. Which, if this were not a comedy, would potentially be indicative of the fact that they would have both died. But in our context, I'm just finding it hilarious, and that this whole family feud is started by two old men disagreeing over a game.
Well, more importantly, maybe just never deciding where we're going to have it. It's like they get, no, this isn't a good enough place, is it?
Yeah.
No, well, there's somewhere around the corner, and 5 years later, they still haven't found the place to have the duel.
Meanwhile, their families are starting a blood feud over it because, my old man is missing and it must be yours that did it and all of this. So it's a nice setup for a comedy of misunderstandings. But also the thing I was going to say, which is to Alan's point, yes, there's something weird about how the stage directions are entirely unhelpful. Like you've got someone enter, two characters say, "We'll help" at exit. And so, yeah, it doesn't make things clear. But the thing that made sense to me with Arthur's line is that he walks in on a scene of not even necessarily violence, but the threat thereof, and goes, this is oppression, gentlemen. This is unmanly. And takes the situation seriously, at which point the others scatter, and then he realizes whom he's just saved. So you could stage the whole thing with just mounting levels of threateningness and never actually have any violence. But yes, I think the stage directions are definitely not helping us.
Yeah,
and
I was able to move the more obviously out of sync stage directions into a more helpful place. But with a melee like that, I just left it as printed and hoped for the best.
Sure.
Anyway, I do need to move us forward. Kyle.
I was just going to say, at the beginning, Nathan has slept with Phillis, right? And he's told her, like, go be a prostitute now that you've lost your virginity or whatever. I'm not marrying you. And I think it's interesting that Theophilus then comes in and defends her nevertheless. I mean, it seems like I don't know if he knows it, but I think that's nice. And that seems, is that, or do I have that wrong?
Yeah, they're two women, Phillis and Millicent, two different women.
Okay, I'm going to move us forward, I'm afraid, to hold on to any additional thoughts as we get into Act 1. Scene 3, enter Testy, Quicksands, and Millicent.
Go to, I say, go to, as you're my niece, and hope to inherit anything that's mine. Shake off this maiden peevishness. Do you whimper upon your wedding day, or do you think you are not married yet? Did you not say I, Millicent, take Mandeville? Aha! Was it not so? Did I not give you too? I that have bred you from the cradle up to fit a growth to match with his fair years, and far more fair estate.
Hey, there's the match.
Love him, I charge you.
I'll endeavour it, sir.
You will endeavour it. Sit no further yet. Stand from her, nephew. I'll so swing her. Ha!
Let me entreat your patience. She's my wife, sir.
Dandle her in her humour, do and spoil her.
'Tis but her modesty.
Her sullen doggedness. I'll baste it out of her. You do not know her as I do, nephew.
I shall, sir, before morning. Better I doubt not. Come, we shall agree.
You will endeavour it. Come, I'll see it done. Marry a man first, and then endeavour to love him, will you? Ha! Is it but so? I'll see you love him presently. So, to bed.
For supper.
A posset into bed, I'll see it done. And 'cause you're so nice, to bed I say. There I will see more done, and then I will speak. Tell me of your endeavour.
Be not so rough and stiff with her, good uncle. I know my supple, tender dealing will get more upon her love than all your chidings.
Such tender dealers spoil young brides, and get nothing of stubbornness. Down with her, I say, now in her wedding sheets. She will be naught else.
And through more charitably, I beseech you, my virgin blushes.
'Tis your sullenness. Would you have brided it so lumpishly with your spruce younker, that fine silken beggar, whose land lies in your husband's counting house, or the most part?
Indeed, the better half. Not without hope to have the rest, as he may want my money.
Would you have whined and puled had you had him to bedward, think you? Yet, to speak the truth, and that wherein she has vexed me 1,000 times, I never saw her laugh, nor heard her sing in all my life. Yet she could both, I have heard, in company she liked.
It has been among maidens, then. But, honoured sir, I know not what I will do to let you see and hear, since you desire to have me show a cheerfulness unto my reverend husband. Look you, sir, I'll kiss him, clap him, and stroke him, ha, my Joe, ha, 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 etc.
Heyday!
She'll make me blush anon, I think.
I'll sing him songs, too.
Whoop, how's this?
That will I, chick. Old songs and over old ones, old as thy reverend self, my chick-a-bird.
She calls me chick and bird, the common names with wives that cuckold their old cravened husbands.
She made him a bed of the thistledown soft, she laid herself under to bear him aloft, and ever she hung, sweet turn thee to me, will make the new bed cry jiggy-joggy.
What impudence is this?
Oh, she's gone as far beyond it now as it was to it.
Now may you answer, go to bed, sweetheart, I'll come to thee, make thy bed fine and soft, I'll lie with thee.
Is this your bashful niece?
What canst thou mean by this? Does this become thee?
Pray do not beat me on my wedding night, but tell me how this and 6 chopping children may become an old man's wife some 5 years hence.
Oh, intolerable!
Is it possible thou canst do thus?
Let women judge. 'Tis very possible that a young, lusty wife may have 6 children, but by one at once in 5 years, sir, and by one father, too. I'll make him young enough to father mine.
She'll make a youth of me.
There was a lady loved a swine, honey, quoth she, and will thou be true love mine? Oh, quoth he.
Here, gentlewoman, are you in your wits?
Yes, and in my own house, I hope. I pray be civil. Shall we to bed, sir? Supperless? You need no stirring meats, it seems. I'm glad on't. Come, Biddy, come away. Would you see, uncle, how I will love him i' bed? Come away.
My edge is taken off. This impudence of hers has outfaced my concupiscence, dashed all quite out of countenance. What a beast was I to marry? Rather, what a beast am I to be? How now? Oh, horrible!
A sow-gelder's horn is blown.
What hideous noise is this?
Enter Buzard.
I cannot help it. While I went forth for the half-pint of sack to make your prodigal posset, and the maid, watching the milk for running o'er, forgot to shut the door, they all rushed in.
What they? What all?
Visited people, sir, and oddly shaped. You'll see anon. They're tuning of their pipes and swear they'll gie a willy-nilly dance before you go to bed, though you stole out your marriage.
Outrageous roysters!
Call and raise the street.
That were to let in violence indeed. These are some very harmless friends, I warrant. And you all could not be so ill-beloved among the bachelors, but some would find way to congratulate our honoured marriage.
What, with horn music?
Kind of flourish.
'Tis a flat conspiracy. This is your bashful, modest, whimpering niece.
Then let them in. If they wrong us tonight, the law tomorrow shall afford us right. Pray let's resolve to see it. Here comes their prologue.
Flourish. Enter Mercury.
At a late parliament held by the gods, Cupid and Hymen fell at bitter odds upon an argument, wherein each did try to advance his own above t'other's deity. Out of this question, which might happier prove, love without marriage or marriage without love? By the effects the trial must be made, so each from other's office drew his aid. Cupid no more of Hymen's matches framed, nor Hymen married those that love inflamed. Now mark the sad effects this strife begot. Cupid his fiery darts and arrows shot as thick as e'er he did, and equal hearts he wounds with equal love. But Hymen parts their forward hands, alas, and joineth none but those which his new matchmaker brings on, old greedy Avarice, who by his spells in breasts of parents and of guardians dwells, that force their tenderlings to loathed beds, which uncouth policy to sorrow leads thousands a thousand ways, of which the least is this, with which we celebrate your feast.
Special drove of horn beasts.
Enter 4 maskers with horns on their heads, a stag, a ram, a goat, and an ox, followed by 4 persons, a courtier, a captain, a scholar, and a bookchar.
These few are thought enough to show how more would appear horrible. The town hath store. The first's a lawyer, who by strife prevailed to wed a wife that was by love entailed unto that courtier, who had the hap soon after to adorn him with that cap. The next, a country cormorant, whose great wealth by a bad father's will obtained by stealth that valiant soldier's mistress, for which matter the engineer his sconce with rams did batter. This an old goatish usurer, that must needs buy a wretch's daughter to his lust, doted and married her without a groat. That herald gave this crest unto his coat. And that's the citizen, so broadly pated, which this mad butcher cuckold antedated. Now by this dance, let husband that doth wed bride from her proper love to loathed bed observe his fortune. Music, strike aloud the cuckold's joy with merry pipe and crowd.
They dance to music of cornets and violins. The dance. Da, 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 da. Exit maskers.
How now, all vanished? The devil take the hindmost.
The foremost, I say, and lay him a block for all the rest to break their necks upon.
Who are they? Can you guess?
Surely not I, sir. Some of my husband's friends, perhaps, that came to warn him of his fortune.
Well considered.
Lock the doors after them, and let us to bed and lock ourselves up, chick, safe from all danger.
We will to bed, chick, since you'll have it so. This key shall be your guard, and here's another shall secure me. My house has store of beds in it. I bring you not to an unfurnished dwelling.
Be not afraid to lie with me, good man. I'll so restore thee again with caudles and cock broths. So buckle thee up. Tomorrow thou shalt see.
Oh, immodesty!
Thou hast good store of gold, and shall not want it in culaces. In every broth I'll boil an angel at the least.
I'll hang first.
I am quite out of wits, and yet I'll counsel thee, nephew. Hark thee.
They whisper.
'Tis like to be mad, counsel.
But will you not live with him then?
No, marry shall he not. Nephew, you shall not. Till the bride it modestly. 'Tis now too late, but I'll so rattle her up tomorrow.
'Tis too late now, and yet he'll do it tomorrow. Good!
Will you to your lodging?
Where be my bridesmaids?
They wait you in your chamber.
The devil a maids is this but my fellow Madge the kitchen maid, and Malkin the cat, or bachelor but myself, and an old fox that my master has kept apprenticeship to palliate his palsy.
Where be the maids, I say, and bachelors to disappoint my husband?
Mark you that.
I mean, to take your points. But you have none. Oh, thrifty age, my bridegroom is so wise, instead of points to hazard hooks and eyes.
She means the eyes in his head. I'll hang else. My master is like to make a blind match here.
Take up the light, sirrah.
I hope she talks so idly, but for want of sleep. And sleep she shall for me tonight.
And well said, nephew. Will you to your chamber, mistress?
Oh, to bed, to bed, to bed. No bride so glad to keep her maidenhead.
And exit. Wow, this is a fascinating scene. Okay, there are comic elements to this, but this just feels like such pointed social commentary. I mean, it's the way that it's like, is everybody in the village in on this? It's like you have this mask turn up just going, you're going to be cuckolded, you're a git, you're a git, you're also a git. And it's just like, wow. I mean, and I put in the chat, this is the kind of thing that would lead to a court case. And I'm fairly certain we actually have court cases like this, where basically someone puts on a local show and actually someone gets very cross about it. So yeah, this is really interesting about what is going on here, and about Millicent's endeavours to get rid of this person she's been foisted with, and of course the way the uncle is just standing there going, now I told you to love him, now love him. There we are. That's how love works, isn't it? Yes. It's like, oh god. So many people. I'll go to Aliki, then Lynn, then Alexandra.
Real quick, I have an important thing to say. I fucked up a line. Or messed up a line, if we want to cut that, which was important. It was Millicent saying, will you not lie with me, which I think set up the rest of the plot.
Yeah. There was a lug as well in there, which was interesting. Anyway, I'll go to Aliki, then Lynn.
So we've had 3 scenes, and we've had 3 young women in variously difficult circumstances in which they technically have no power. And all of them are speaking up for themselves and making the men uncomfortable in very, very pointed ways. Just delighted by that.
Lynn.
Yeah, so the young men go out of their way to make us dislike Quicksands before we even meet him. He's old, he's greedy, it charges predatory interest. He's called in these loans, and he's basically financially broken these young men, who don't take responsibility for the fact that they live beyond their means, but I guess we're not talking about that yet. So we know we're not supposed to like him before we even meet him, and then Testy makes him look nice by comparison. Like, oh, that's awful. Like, that he's basically coerced his niece and who's his ward, I imagine, into marrying a much older man because the older man's wealthy, and then but you have to love it, and then he threatens her with physical violence throughout this scene, like if I hit you enough, you'll love him. Like, what? We might need to tweak that.
No, I don't think we do, because I the thing about this scene, what I find fascinating is I'm interested about this as it's drama. I mean, it's got comedy elements in it, but actually this is just pure drama all the way through. Because because it's interesting about her husband here is that he's actually really threatened by the idea that they will actually have sex, and that she's singing these bawdy songs at him, and that freaks him out. And that's really interesting, actually, about the way this marriage has been set up, that it is really a marriage all about convenience, and actually the reality of marriage is freaking her husband out in an interesting way as well. There's so much to play with in rehearsal and in performance of that. I'm sure there are actual laughs to be got out of this scene, but I'm just fascinated it on a dramatic sense rather than necessarily in its comedic sense. There's plenty of comedy in it. Alan, and then others. Eric.
I'm sure that we've seen an invasion of maskers at a wedding on a number of previous occasions with plays that we've done.
Usually people then die.
Yeah, just pity she's a whore, for example. Yeah,
Just pity, yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it's a fascinating mask as well. This scene that you get there, because it's not even subtle. It's just basically saying to their faces what's going on here, and it's just like code it in some way, people. Eric.
I was just going to say that even in these three scenes, it's like the playwright very clearly had an idea of who each character was. Like you get from the beginning, you understand what's going on, even if you don't like get all the words in a modern sense. I mean, like what's going on between like Arthur and his sister, and then you've got like sort of Nathan and Phillis, and you can understand immediately what's like the relationship between each character as well.
Yeah, it's very accessibly direct, and even though it does have occasional little sort of things where you're going, okay, that's a bit alien perhaps to the listener. It's got so much that feels modern in the way the dialogue bounces, and also sort of looks ahead to things we'll see in the restoration as well, in that sort of the way that bounces. Lois, then we will move into Act 2.
Well, the one really unusual thing in this scene, at least I don't recall seeing it anywhere else, is just the idea that the woman pretends to be a sex maniac who terrifies her husband to the point where he couldn't possibly consummate the marriage, which is exactly what she wants, obviously, because she's hoping somehow to keep herself safe for the guy she really wants to marry.
Yeah,
maybe a wilderness marriage or something.
It's quite a gambit, isn't it? Very briefly, Sarah.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar to what Lois just said, actually, and also to pick up on what you were saying earlier about the fact that he's terrified of her. I mean, for her to, I know we're not meant to take it seriously, but if we do take it seriously just for a moment, the fact that she has the nous to realize in the moment. I don't know how we don't know how much she knew him beforehand, but that she actually picks up how she can read him. She has this ability to read her husband and work out that actually, to do this and to sort of like play the lustful wench with him is actually going to put him off. Is just such a smart thing to do, and also really, really risky, because of course it could backfire horribly if she wasn't really good at reading him. So we're kind of, she's been set up here as like something of a, again, like Phillis and Dionysia, these really quick-witted women, but also these quite, like in this case, quite a brave woman, because it's quite a brave strategy to go for, because it could go horribly wrong, and it doesn't. So it's just a very, very interesting tactic.
Yes, it's not the Changeling. I think where it's a different universe. No, we're clear. Okay, Act 2, Scene 1. Let's find out. I don't know whether this is for a playhouse that might have intervals or not. I don't know if the acts are significant. Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Lucy and Phyllis.
You are the first maid that e'er I entertained upon so small acquaintance. Yet you are welcome. I like your hand and carriage.
'Tis your favour. But love, they say, sweet mistress, is received at the first sight, and why not service then, which often brings more absolute returns of the dear trust imposed, and firmer faith by servants than by lovers?
Stay there, Phyllis. I may by that conjecture you have been deceived by some false lover.
Who, I, mistress? I hope I look too merrily for such a one. Somewhat too coarsely, too, to be beloved. If I were sad and handsome, then it might be thought I were a little lovesick. Pray, how long has this disease affected you, this melancholy, mistress? Not ever since you lost your father, I hope.
For the most part. Thou saidst, methought, that love might be ta'en in at the first sight.
There 'tis. I find her. Love, mistress. Yes, a maid may take in more love at one look or at a little loophole than all the doddy poles in town can purge out of her while she lives, she smothering it and not make known her passion. There's the mischief.
Suppose she love an enemy to her house.
An enemy? What case the case were yours?
But 'tis no case of mine. Put by I, pray thee.
I'll put it to you, though I miss your case. Suppose it were your house, and Master Arthur, whose father was your father's enemy, were your beloved?
Pray thee no more.
Now I have struck the vein. Suppose I say all this were true, would you confound yourself in smothering your love, which in itself is pure and innocent, until it grow to a pernicious disease within you, and hide it in your bosom till it work your kindled heart to ashes?
Thou hast won my patience to attention. Therefore tell me, if thou canst find or think it honourable in me to take such an affection?
Yes, and religious, most commendable. Could you but win his love into a marriage, to beget peace between your families? How many and what great examples have we from former ages and of later times of strong dissensions between furious factions that to their opposite houses have drawn in either's allies and friends, whole provinces, yea, kingdoms, into deadly opposition, till the wide wounds on both sides have set forth rivers of blood, which only have been stopped by the soft bands of love in marriages of equal branches, sprung from the first roots of all those hell-bred hatreds.
My good maid.
Yes, I have been a good one to my grief.
Thou hast given me strength to tell thee, and I hope, when it is told, I shall have yet more ease.
Weren't you, mistress? For out with it.
I love that worthy gentleman, and am confident that in the time of our two fathers' friendship he affected me no less. But since that time I have not seen him, nor dare mention him to wrong my brother's patience, who is so passionate that could he but suspect I bred a thought that favoured him, I were for ever lost. For this sad cause, as well as for the loss of my dear father, I have sighed away 12 moons in silent sorrow, and have heard that Arthur too, but for what cause I know not, has not been seen abroad, but spends his time in pensive solitude.
Perhaps he grieves as much for the supposed loss of you as of his father too.
The best construction I make of his retiredness is the blessed prevention which I daily pray for, of a fatal meeting twixt him and my brother, which would be sure the death of one or both. And now that fear invades me, as it does always, my brother being abroad, and such an absence has not been usual. I have not seen him since yesterday.
Fear nothing, mistress. Now you have eased your mind, let me alone to comfort you. And see, your brother.
Enter Theophilus.
How is it with you, sister?
I'm assuming this
Yeah, I think the line
Is
attributions are wrong.
is Lucy.
Yeah.
Much better now than when you left me, brother, if no ill accident has happened to you since your departure, as I fear there has. Why look you else so sadly? Speak, dear brother. I hope you did not meet the man you hate. If you did, speak. If you have fought and slain him, I charge you tell, that I may know the worst of fortune come before me. I shall gain perhaps a death by it.
You speak as if you loved the man I hate, and that you fear I've killed him.
Not for love of him, I assure you, sir, but of yourself. Her fear in this case, sir, is that the law may take from her the comfort of her life in taking you from her, and so she were but a dead woman.
I think this must
We
be...
were speaking of such a danger just as
Yeah,
you
I think
came
that
in.
one is Phillis.
Is that is Phillis?
Yeah, that is Phillis.
Yeah,
I thought so halfway, and then I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Go on, Phyllis, start from the top of that speech.
Okay. Not for love of him, I assure you, sir, but of yourself. Her fear in this case, sir, is that the law may take from her the comfort of her life in taking you from her. And so she were but a dead woman. We were speaking of such a danger just as you came in, and truly, sir, my heart even trembles. Think upon it yet. Pray, sir, resolve her.
Then 'twas your frivolous fear that brought in her. Good sister, be at peace, for, by my love to you, oath I will not violate, I neither saw nor sought him. But other thoughts perplex me.
What, were you at the wedding, brother?
Whose wedding, sister?
Your lost love, Millicent's. Are you now sad after your last leave-taking?
What do you mean?
There may be other matches, my good brother.
You wrong me shamefully to think that I can think of other than her memory. Though she be lost and dead to me, can you be so unnatural as to desire the separation of a thought of mine from her dear memory, which is all the comfort my heart is married to, or I can live by?
Surely, good sir, in my opinion, sharp, eager stomachs may be better fed with airy smell of meat than the bare thought of the most curious dainties.
What piece of impudence have you received into my house?
Pray, brother, pardon me. I took her, as I find her, for my comfort. She has by counsel and discourse wrought much ease and delight into my troubled thoughts.
Good maid, forgive me, and my gentle sister, I pray thee bear with my distractions.
A good-natured gentleman for all his hasty flashes.
But now I'll tell you, sister, do not chide me. I have a new affliction.
What is it, brother?
I am engaged unto a gentleman, a noble, valiant gentleman for my life, by hazarding his own in my behalf.
It was then against Arthur. What villain was't durst take your cause in hand against that man?
You wrong me beyond sufferance, and my dear father's blood within yourself, in seeming careful of that man's safety.
His safety, sir? Alas, she means he is a villain that would take the honour of his death out of your hands, if he must fall by sword of man.
Again, I ask you pardon, but I had a quarrel yesterday that drew strong odds upon my single person, 3 to 1, when, at the instant, that brave gentleman with his sword sides me, puts them all to flight.
But how can that afflict you?
How quick you are.
Good brother, I had done.
My affliction is that I not know the man to whom I am so much engaged, to give him thanks at least.
Enter Nathaniel.
Oh, sir, you're welcome, though we parted somewhat abruptly yesterday.
I thank you, sir.
Pray thee, Nat, tell me, for I hope thou knowest him, what gentleman was that came in betwixt us?
If the devil know him no better, he will lose a part of his due, I think, but to the purpose. I knew your wonted nature would be friends with me before I could come at you. However, I have news for you that might deserve your love, where you might have lain him.
What is't, pray thee?
Sweet Mistress Lucy, so long unsaluted.
Kiss.
My brother attends your news, sir.
My wench become her chambermaid, very pretty. How the jade mumps for fear I should discover her.
Your news, good Nat. What is it, ready-made, or are you now but coining it?
No, it was coined last night. The right stamp, and passes current for your good. Now know that I and Mun and Vince, with divers others of our comrades, were last night at the Bride House.
What mischief did you do there?
A mask, lad, in which we presented the miseries of enforced marriages so lively, Zooks, by your captious countenance, and hear me handsomely.
Good brother, do. It has a fine beginning.
But mark what follows. This morning, early up, we got again, and with our fiddlers made a fresh assault and battery against the bed-rid bridegroom's window, with An old song, a very wondrous old one of the cares, vexations, fears, and torments that a decrepit, nasty, rotten husband meets in a youthful, beauteous, sprightly wife, so as the weak wretch will shortly be afraid that his own feebler shadow makes him cuckold. Our Moscow night begat a separation betwixt them before bedtime, for we found him at one window coughing and spitting at us, she at another laughing and throwing money down to the fiddlers, while her uncle Testy from a third porthole raves, denouncing law and thundering statutes against their minstrelsy.
Would he refuse his bride bed the first night?
Hang him.
Our horn mosque put him off it, bless my invention, for which I think you'll judge she'll forsake him all nights and days hereafter. Here's a blessing prepared now for you, if you have grace to follow it.
Out of my house, that I may kill thee. Go. Here it were inhospitable. Hence, thou busy villain, that with sugared malice hath poisoned all my hopes, ruined my comforts in that sweet soul forever. Go, I say, that I may, with the safety of my manhood, write me upon that mischievous head of thine.
Is this your way of thanks for courtesies, or is it our luck always to meet good friends and never part so? Yet before I go, I will demand your reason, if you have any, where in our friendly care can prejudice you, or poison any hopes of yours in Millicent.
Pray, brother, tell him.
Yes, that he may die satisfied that I did but justice on him in killing him. That villain, old in mischief, he'll take him, that has married her, conceives, was my plot. I know he does. And for a sure revenge will either work her death by poison or some other cruelty, or keep her locked up in such misery that I shall never see her more.
I answer.
Not in a word, let me entreat you. Go.
Fair Mistress Lucy.
Neither shall she hear you.
Her maid shall then, or I'll not out tonight.
On what acquaintance, sir?
He takes her aside.
Be not afraid. I take no notice of thee. I like thy course went and will keep thy counsel, and come sometimes and bring thee a bit in the world.
Oh, see you choked first.
Thou art not the first Castellanch that has made a good chambermaid.
Oh, you are base, and I could claw your eyes out.
Pray tell your master now. Go. So fare you well, sir.
Exit Nathaniel.
I thank you, brother, that you promise me you will not follow him now. Some other time will be more fit. What said he to you, Phillis?
Marry, he said, help me, good apron strings.
What was it that he said?
I have it now. It was in answer, sir, of your objections. First, that you feared the old man wickedly would make away his wife, to which he says that is not to be feared, while she has so much fear of heaven before her eyes. And next, that he would lock her up from sight of man, to which he answers, she is so endued with wit of woman that were she locked up, or had locks upon her, locks upon locks, locks of prevention or security, yet being a woman, she would have her will, and break those locks as easily as her wedlock. Lastly, for your access unto her sight, if you have land, he says, to sell or mortgage, he'll undertake his doors, his wife and all shall fly open to you, wide open to you.
He could not say so.
Troth, but 'tis like his wild way of expression.
Yes, I knew that. My wit else had been puzzled.
Now I find myself instructed by him, friends with him again. Now, Arnold, any tidings?
For indeed, here has entered Arnold. Arnold?
Arnold's here, yes. Not of the gentleman that sought for you, but I have other news that's worth your knowledge. Your enemy, young Arthur, that has not been abroad this 12-month, has got forth in a disguise, I hear, and weaponed well. I have it from the most sure intelligence. Look to yourself, sir.
My blood chills again.
I'll not think of him. To dinner, sister.
And exuent. The person we were talking about earlier, and stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this. Stuff that we need better marked asides for some of it, but people navigated it very well, actually. Once again, we have the Nathaniel being a charmer and Phillis telling him to get stuffed. And really quite enjoyable, actually, that reverse on him. From Theophilus. I do hope that's not a typo, because I love it when we have these written out with sounds. Aaron, then Alan, and then Eric.
I just there are moments when it seems like there's just a copy of the script sitting by the stage, and characters walk over and they go, "Hey, actually, that guy's in disguise." Like, it just seems like there's so much just, "Hey, I need you to know this now. Here you go." Yeah, that's all. It just some of it is very kind of shoved in there.
Yeah, you do have these little bits where it's sort of going, okay, you're telling us a little bit of additional information, but you are kind of just telling us quite a lot of stuff we actually saw earlier. And it's like, yeah, is this because you're expecting latecomers and you just want to make sure you're reiterating the plot every so often? I feel there could be some trims in here. That there are some excesses, but not too many so far. Alan?
What struck me so far is that we've had about 5 strong female roles in this play, and the males are really in the main either plot devices or feed lines, and I'm just wondering whether this is the start of a trend, because I don't remember as female heavier a play in terms of the females having the agency and the better lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much that the men haven't got good lines, but they're all arseholes. I mean, it's very difficult to find a nice man in here at all. And they're all sort of or a bit feckless. Eric?
I was just amused by how Nathaniel is kind of like, yes, I have good news. She didn't sleep with him. Therefore, I think the implication is basically, we made such a ruckus and we got him so terrified of sex that he basically it won't do it, and therefore you can sort of annul the marriage. Maybe you can slip in, you can you can do stuff. There's more flexibility there. And and Theophilus is just kind of like, well, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. He's going to lock her up or do something, because clearly they've seen different plays. Nathaniel has been to all the raunchy, rowdy comedies, and Theophilus has seen all the sort of tragedies where people are locked in towers and you have to rescue them or die trying. Yeah, I just think Nathaniel continues to be so charming.
Yeah, it is this thing. Also, just thinking about what is the moral character of this text, and within an early modern context of what is its moral character, because it's actually interesting. The various defenses for comedy is you're supposed to show X or Y, that these are bad people and let's mock them. But it's actually there's a lot of this going. This doesn't necessarily fit with the some of the models for early modern comedy. Very briefly, because we do have another scene to get through. Lynn, then Alexandra.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say the men are plot devices, but they're all kind of terrible. I mean, Nathaniel is really gross. And Theophilus seems to suffer from some kind of emotional dysregulation. And Arnold says that. It's just like, you're hot and cold, your friends, your enemies, you're kind of unbalanced, dude. You're basically a good person at heart, but he's got a rage problem. Yeah. Arthur might be okay, but he's kind of feckless, as you say.
But they're all giving actors something to do. I mean, there's not a character sitting there going, "I don't know who this guy is." I know who all of the especially the older men, the uncle and the husband to be. I'm just going, yeah, I know exactly how to play those characters. They're giving me all the things. Arnold and Arthur, they've all got something going on there. They're doing more than just plot. They have character. It's just not necessarily very impressive ones. Alexandra.
On the subject of doing plot, I love how much Phyllis is affecting the world, is influencing sort of the way that the plot will go. I really enjoyed. I found it so delicately written, that beginning of her interaction with Lucy, where she's saying, you know, if I were sad and handsome, you might think I'm in love, but I'm not that. You know, that's not the kind of world I'm in where that's allowable. But you are. Who's this guy that you're thinking of? And then she sort of very gently pulls at the thread of Lucy's being in love with somebody, and starts to plot the reuniting of their families
I
by
really
getting them
like
together.
I loved their first interaction as well. It's like going, within a servant master context, this is almost like love at first sight. So you can just get on with someone straight away, and it was sort of like, oh, where's this scene going? They're not talking about. Oh, now they're talking about men.
No, they're talking about men. Yeah, and then.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, and then just on the subject of Phyllis plotting, she also has that moment which Aliki did so beautifully of being pulled aside by Nathaniel, who just says, "I like that you found yourself a job. That's really cool. See you around," and spinning that into, "Oh, he advises you this, and the other thing," on again how to further the plot. So I really love.
Yeah, and it's that aside help me good apron strings of just going think of a thing, yes. It's like hand business while I think of a response to the thing. It's so nicely done. Everyone's got something to do. I love it. Okay, it hasn't got problematic yet. I'm really afraid when it gets there. It's within normal boundaries so far. Act 2, Scene 2. Enter Quicksands, Testy, and Millicent.
Here was a good night and good morrow to given by a crew of devils.
'Twas her plot, and let her smart for it.
Smart, sir, did you say? I think 'twas smart enough for a young bride to be made lie alone and gnaw the sheets upon her wedding day.
Rare impudence.
But for your satisfaction, as I hope, to gain your favour, as you are my uncle, I know not any actor in this business.
Enter Buzard with a paper.
Sir, here's a letter thrown into the entry.
Quicksands reads the letter.
It is some villainous libel, then, I warrant. Sawest thou not who conveyed it in?
Not I only found it, sir.
Pray read it you. Not my own house, free from 'em. The devil owed me a spite, and when he has ploughed an old man's lust up, he sits grinning at him. Nay, I that have so many gallant enemies on fire to do me mischief or disgrace, that I must provide tinder for their sparks. The very thought bears weight enough to sink me.
May I be worthy, sir, to know your trouble?
Do you know yourself?
Am I your trouble, then?
'Tis sworn and written in that letter there, thou shalt be wicked. Hundreds have ta'en oaths to make thee false, and me a horned monster.
And does that trouble you?
Is it not you?
A dream has done much more. Pray, sir, your patience. And now I will be serious, and endeavour to mend your faith in me. Is't in their power to destroy virtue, think you? Or do you suppose me false already? 'Tis perhaps their plot to drive you into that opinion, and so to make you cast me out amongst them. You may do so upon the words of strangers, and if they tell you all your gold is counterfeit, throw that after me.
Now she speaks, woman.
But since these men pretend, and you suppose them to be my friends, that carry this presumption over my will, I'll take charge of myself and do fair justice both on them and you. My honour is my own, and I'm no more yours yet, nor on whom my uncle has bestowed me, than all the world's the ceremony of, and will remain so, free from them and you, who by the false light of their wildfire flashes have slighted and depraved me and your bride bed, till you recount your wilful ignorance and they their petulant folly.
This sounds well.
Both they and you trench on my peace and honour dearer than beauty, pleasure, wealth, and fortune. I would stand under the fall of my estate most cheerfully and sing, for there be ways to raise up fortune's ruin, with her towers shattered in pieces, and the glorious ball she stands on cleft asunder. But for peace, once ruined, there's no reparation. If honour fall, which is the soul of life, 'tis like the damned. It ne'er lifts the head up to the light again.
Niece, thou hast won me. And nephew, she's too good for you. I charge you, give her her will, and I'll have her home again else.
I know not what I can deny her now.
I ask but this, that you will give me leave to keep a vow I made, which was last night, because you slighted me.
Stay there a little. I'll lay the price of 20 maidenheads now. As the market goes, you get not hers this 7 night.
My vow is for a month, and for so long I crave your faithful promise not to attempt me. In the meantime, because I will be quit with my trim forward gentlemen and secure you from their assaults, let it be given out that you have sent me down into the country, or back to my uncle's, whither you please.
Oh, tarry, stay here a while.
Oh, so I intend, sir. I'll not leave your house, but be locked up in some convenient room, not to be seen by any but yourself, or else to have the liberty of your house in some disguise, if it were possible, free from the least suspicion of your servants.
What needs all this? Do we not live in a well-governed city? And have I not authority? I'll take care and guard of you and of your house against all outrageous attempts, and clap those goatish roarers up fast as they come.
I understand her drift, sir, and applaud her quaint device. 'Twill put 'em to more trouble and more expense in doubtful search of her. The best way to undo 'em is to foil 'em at their own weapons. 'Tis not to be thought they'll seek by violence to force her from me, but wit, in which we'll overcome 'em.
Agree on it twixt yourselves. I see ye are friends. I'll leave you to yourselves. Hark hither, niece. Now I dare trust you with him. He is in years, 'tis true, but hear'st thou, girl, old foxes are best blades.
I'm sure. They stink most.
Good keeping makes him bright and young again.
But for how long?
A year or 2, perhaps. Then, when he dies, his wealth makes thee a countess.
You speak much comfort, sir.
That's my good girl. And nephew, love her. I find she deserves it. Be as benevolent to her as you can. Show her your goodwill at least. You do not know how the goodwill of an old man may work in a young wife. I must now take my journey down to the country house. At your month's end, I'll visit you again. No ceremony, joy and content be with you.
And a good journey to you.
And a good journey to you.
Exit Testy.
You are content, you say, to be locked up or put in some disguise, and have it said you are gone into your uncle's? I have heard of some bridegrooms that shortly after marriage have gone to see their uncles, seldom brides. I have thought of another course.
Be it anyway.
What if it were given out you're run away out of a detestation of your match?
'Twould put a blot upon my reputation.
When they consider my unworthiness, 'twill give it credit. They'll commend you for it.
You speak well for yourself.
I speak as they'll speak.
Well, let it be so then. I am content.
We'll put this instantly in act. The rest, as for disguise or privacy in my house, you'll leave to me?
All, sir, to your dispose, provided still you urge not to infringe my vow concerning my virginity.
'Tis the least thing I think on. I will not offer at it till your time.
Why, here's happiness in a husband now.
And they exit. Once again, Millicent is cunning Millicent, doing many cunning things to arrange things. as she would like. Once again, the older chaps are not exactly winning themselves over to us in any particular way. Alexandra.
Think there might be something to Quicksand right at the end, though. I mean, first of all, it's really nice that the older chaps do acquiesce to what she's proposing, even when they haven't understood all of it yet. But also, this interaction right at the end, that when Quicksand and Millicent are finally left alone, that, you know, they both have more of an understanding of what's going on in their wedding than anybody else who isn't in this wedding, marriage. And yeah, I really liked those lines of his where he was sort of going, well, I'm, you know, my unworthiness, because this is what people will say about me. So, you know, he's not ignorant of the opinion of the world as to what they've just done. But also he's not, that leads me to think he's not stupid in terms of ignorant of what she is like, what she could be, etc., etc.
Yes, because she,
which is nice.
They do have reasonably frank exchanges there. Yes, Erin.
Just picking up on what Alexandra, this scene makes me actually see something more to play with Quicksands, because the first scene is now he's not dumb, he's frustrated, he obviously wants to have a particular fantasy with this young innocent girl, and she's denying that, so he's kind of, you know, he's got umbrage about it. But then we come into this scene and he kind of, you know, he rests, he gets it out of his system, he comes back, he says, okay, look, you know, I'm old, let's play with this. Like he's a wealthy man who likes power, so she's offered him a game where he can fool these other people and he gets to be the smart one in the know. It gives him a couple more levels than just I'm a doddering old man who likes young girls, and it makes him a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, we have this discussion, you know, oh, let's hide me away and disguise me, or, you know, maybe we should put this rumor abroad. No, that's not a good plan. And yeah, it's interesting, they're sort of developing the plan as they're going along, and she's still pushing for where her plan wants to go, but they haven't filled in the details yet. Eric.
I was just gonna say, I'm impressed by, like, I mean, okay, he's meant to, I think he's described as 70 and something. I can't remember how old exactly, but he's older, substantially than she is. I just keep finding it hilarious that her uncle or father, I'm not entirely sure, Testy, is basically kind of keeps sort of calling him nephew by obligation because of the like sort of. But there's no suggestion as to how old he actually is. So he could be like, I don't know, in like younger than Quicksands, but then have to call him nephew because of it's funny in a sort of, it depends how you play with it as well. So yeah, I don't know, it's just it amuses me.
Other thoughts from the room about where we are? This play. It's interesting as well because, you know, we've got through, you know, quite a few scenes now. We've got through quite a lot of the business, and in a sense, I sort of know what's going on, but I'm not sure I know what's going on. It's like there's a lot of detail and world building and character work, but actually not a huge amount of actual action yet. We've had a few incidents. And the mask is fascinating, and just these elements going on there, and there's just so much to dig into actually on a staging front. Even if I don't know what the shape of the rest of the play looks like yet, because I genuinely don't really know where it's all going. I mean, I know certain people will get paired off, and some people will turn out not to be dead, and you know, and I'm sure all those things, but I don't know how it's going to get there. I have a thought about where an element of it's going next time, but so before I go around the room for final thoughts, I'll start going around. Thoughts on the play so far. I'll go to Sarah first. Obviously too early to make any definite prognostications about what to do with it, but at the moment I'm just thinking workshop. I just think there's such character work to be done here.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and I I keep mentally I keep comparing it with a play we did last week, which I realise for purposes of this video is not very useful because it's very unlikely that whoever's watching this will know which play I'm talking about that we did last week, and I can't actually remember what it was called. Someone remind me what it was called.
Spanish Duke.
There we go. But it's like, yeah, this seems to be everything that play wasn't. It's it's kind of it's got these. It started off really well as the last play did as well, but it seems to be living up to its early promise. You know, I'm a great one for characterization, so I'm really enjoying the fact that these seem to be, you know, three-dimensional people with kind of, yeah, sort of proper tangible characters. They're not just sort of cut-ups who are being made to dance around and do things because plot. You know, they actually, the plot seems to be coming from the characters, and sometimes it's kind of a bit of a ridiculous plot, but it kind of works. You know, I can totally imagine these two old guys going off and like and this family feud developing. It's absurd, but it does kind of hang together, and I'm finding Quicksand a really interesting character actually, because I did, you know, someone said earlier that we heard about him a lot before he actually turned up, and I was really, you know, I mean, all of that description was kind of, it was not promising. I was expecting a lot of very anti-Semitic dodginess there, and actually so far I'm finding him, and probably because I was playing him, but I'm finding him a really interesting character because he's not just a sort of, you know, stereotypical usurer. He's got light and shade to him, and yeah, I'm just finding him interesting, and I'm finding his you know, someone said at one point that he you know, he's really, really old and he's never bothered with women before. Someone, I'm paraphrasing it, someone said he's never bothered with women up until this point, and I'm like, yeah, so why is he doing so now? You know, it seems to me that there's more going on here than just the sort of, oh, I'm a randy old goat who wants a young woman, because if that was the case, then he would have married before. He would have had other younger wives before, or he would have married before. But it's like, what's going on there? Why is he suddenly doing this now? And how self-aware is he of what he's doing and the outcome? He seems to be a pretty self-aware character, and I find that intriguing.
Yes, and just on the thing, you know, these are still comedy characters. They're still quite broad brushstrokes, but that doesn't mean that there isn't something going on there, and you know that's the difference. I think the big difference with Spanish Gypsy, of course, is that's a tragi-comedy. So in the sense that there's a tragic element, whereas this seems to be much more comedy throughout, but with good pointing of drama. I'll go to Aaron next. Any final thoughts?
Plays making so this is coming. This play is getting in just under the wire before the ban on female performers is lifted, based on a quick thing. And I'm wondering, it makes me curious how much of this like building up of the female characters is part of some kind of larger movement, like this idea that no, we want to have a more expansive character base. We want to have more room for performers of this kind. I don't know. It just made me look it up. Like, is this something that I wanted to know if this was a play that came out after the ban was lifted? And it's like, cool, I've got great actresses. Let's give them something to do. But no, it's coming before it. And it seems to be part of, I don't know, kind of something in the cultural mindset of we're getting more interested in female characters, and we want to bring them to the stage.
It's definitely nodding to the Restoration, but the Restoration is a long way ahead. I mean, technically there isn't a ban. It's more the reverse. In fact, when we get to the Restoration, you know, the licensing of plays is basically, if you've got female parts, you know, women had better play them, because otherwise it's sort of weird. But it is not done within commercial drama. But the text is very reminiscent of Restoration comedy. It has to be said. It is, you know, you can see that there is a connecting fluid between thread or whatever between them. I'll go to Lois. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm finding it quite enjoyable. I mean, it is interesting that there seem to be an awful lot of really good boy actors around at this time, or just a lot of boy actors, I guess, that they're finding parts for. I mean, there was much more awareness of women performers. I mean, Henrietta Maria had, in fact, acted with her maids of honor and various court ladies in a play that a lot of people had seen, and they were trained even by two of the two leading actors of the King's Men. So, and there were also other, well, of course, lots of women had been performing in private performances at home anyway. I think it may have been sort of going in that direction. I mean, women were acting in France, and I think there had been a visit even by a French company, which didn't go well because everybody was so disgusted at the women acting. But it was kind of preparing the ground, you might say. Anyway, as far as the rest of it, yeah, I mean, I was intrigued also by Quicksands. When he first appears, even, he's saying, you know, he'll be nice to her and not do the awful things that Testy is suggesting. It did occur to me that you could play it either way. You could suggest that he actually is fairly nice in spite of being a usurer, or you could treat this, I suppose, as just a sign that he's practically impotent or terrified of the wedding night anyway, and is planning to go really easy. And, you know, he's being laughed at for just not being very manly. You know, yes, I don't know.
Yeah, there's someone who's just spent his entire life huddled over books, and suddenly is expected to step up to what society is expecting. Emma, any final thoughts?
I've just really enjoyed this, actually. It's been really exciting. It's been really clever, and with some wonderful characters, as we said. And then I found that the scene that I read was really easy to read, and I felt it was really feeding me a lot of the truth of the character straight away, and I, you know, all these ideas about how to play it came quite quickly to my head. So I think this, yeah, I'm really enjoying, like, it is a comedy, but you know, the truth of it, there's lots there to explore and play. It's really rich.
Yeah, Aliki, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Emma. It's really, and Sarah had said something similar. It's really quite simple to read, while it's got quite a lot of depth to it for that kind of comedy, and that's enjoyable. I was thinking about Quicksands, sorry. I wonder if his thing is simply that Testy wanted his ward, niece, whatever she is, settled safely with somebody who's not a wastrel, or wanted the money that he will give her on his death to be well looked after, and therefore arranged a good businessman to marry her, rather than any sexual interest, because he doesn't really seem to be that interested romantically.
No. Kyle, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just also really liked it. I thought Millicent was so witty and interesting. But also there's that stuff about the joke about the gold being valued, you know, whether his love is valued as much as his gold, and if you throw it after her, that witty remark she makes, I thought that was interesting. But it's also kind of getting into I mean, it's echoes of the kind of anti-Semitism maybe that Aliki fears is coming.
Yes, I'm not saying there isn't coding in there, but I think it's massage-outable, frankly, and it does help that the characters feel like that they're not cardboard cutouts, because that's the thing, is if all people are doing is plot function, and their plot function is to be a stereotype of that ilk, then it's a lot harder to deal with than actually a character who has some sort of depth. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's bouncing along quite nicely. It's not hanging about at all. I must admit, I've had a bit of difficulty because we've seen a heck of a lot of characters already.
Yeah.
And most of them are actually fairly meaty roles. And as I commented during the run, there's some very strong female roles in here. Maybe Lois is right that there were a lot of very good boy actors about at this point.
Yeah, and actually, this is a question that we'll be asking further down the line in terms of, as well as questions of adjustments or changes that may need to be made further down the line. So far, there's very little, but there is probably a cutting question. It's a chunky one. It's a little longer than your standard one, and for a comedy, being long is a bit of an issue, more so than with a tragedy. So there is a question of what could we cut, and a couple of those scenes felt that they were a bit overlong. There were a few bits where I was going, I'm a bit bored now with some of this stuff. But there isn't a lot. And also, just on scale of company, it's a big company. Is this reducible? And at the moment, again, so far, it's not obvious. Nothing is obviously reducible. And we won't know until we get to the end if any characters are completely pointless. But nobody seems pointless yet in an overt sort of I've wandered on with a book for no apparent reason way. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, quite a bit. I'll try not to say everything that's bouncing around my head. So yeah, Quicksands is really interesting. I'm kind of hoping that what we're building towards here is in the end him saying, I didn't really want to get married anyway. I mean, you're a nice girl and everything, but it's kind of not my bag, so off with you. Go marry the person you're really in love with. But that's what it looks like we're working towards is Millicent and what, Arthur? No, yeah, anyway, getting together. That would require either Quicksands' death or a dissolution of the marriage. And I have read quite a number of early modern texts, of early modern plays, and that never happens. I mean, like there was one, I think there was like the one with the Dutch guy where there are three sisters and one of them sleeps with her boyfriend, got to get married. One of them, they have a church ceremony. Even though the marriage hasn't been consummated, they're married. And then another one, there's a verbal betrothal in front of witnesses, and that's binding. So the assumption always seems to be that once you're in, you're in. Whether the match has been consummated or not. So if Quicksands and Millicent's union is dissolved, that will be the only time I know of where such a thing happens in this period. So that's I'm really curious to see if that actually happens.
Rachel, any final thoughts?
I'm enjoying this much more than I thought I was going to, based on the title of the play. I think it's lively and fun. Still worried about where we're going after this. Can't shake the foreboding.
Yeah. No, it's not really a spoiler to say. I think we can probably connect the title with a plot point that we've just hit to suggest where we might be going next time. So, yeah, get ready to put the hard hats on, people. Eric, any final thoughts?
Well, as everyone said, I was enjoying it. I mean, I was enjoying being the guy that everyone hates, basically. Being the asshole. So it's, I mean, I feel like Nathaniel maybe kind of has good intents, maybe like in a very sort of abstract fashion, but he doesn't really care about it. And he just kind of has this, I mean, in my head, it kind of like he just does the worst thing possible to make those happen. Anyway, what I was wondering was basically whether they actually flagged up the mask that was going to happen before it happened, because we only got the explanation for that after the fact, that like it was actually Nathaniel and his crew that were what do you call it? That were basically trying to upset the whole situation rather than sort of with a romp and all that stuff. And I was also wondering who Mercury would be doubling with, because obviously you've got like this huge crew. I mean, because clearly it's Mercury, the stag, the boar, whatever, goat, ram, so on and so forth, and then another captain. Like it's a huge company of people plus like the people who are being serenaded, like Millicent, Quicksands, and Testy. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's just interesting.
We do get an indication of some of the people involved in it, but you're right. It's not clearly indicated that X is definitely playing, being Y. And I think a logic of that needs to be figured out. But you're right. It sort of doesn't fully explicate it, but I think you can sort of infer it probably from a lot of what's going on, and it is semi set up, but it's not in the sense of we're going to do a mask. I think that's not set up explicitly. I could be wrong, unless I missed it. I wasn't really paying attention, I have to say, through Act 1. I had a lot going on in the office. So I'm the idiot in a hurry. Alexandra, any final thoughts?
Cut the mask. You could totally get rid of the actual performance and the time that would take, and reduce the description in the later scene. And we would still get the idea that, we went and bothered the old man until he decided not to have his wedding night. And then we went in the morning and definitely got assurance that we'd been successful because they all turned up at different windows. And I agree with everybody else. It's really nice to have multiple women with lots to say and movement of the plot. This is new and interesting and difficult to find even nowadays. And I also like the unflat characterization, the ease of the language. I think structurally the play is doing a lot of stuff that is it's happening so easily, we're not even paying attention to it. But it's doing it's constructed quite tightly, which is why we're finding it so difficult to cut anything. And one thing I really liked, which is the only thing I want to point out, is how, further to your point about where the plot is going, it starts very clearly as to what the plot strands will be, right? This man is being pushed out of doors to take revenge for his murdered father, and this other man's intended has been married off to somebody else, so we'll all go and have a go at her in order to cuckold him. And then in 2 more scenes, both of those plot lines get completely dashed. They get completely sort of overturned, and some actual story starts to happen. And it's driven by other people and in other directions, which I think is comical in itself because it's a form of irony. So yeah, just all in all, I'm really sad to think of this title and where it might be leading us, given that we've had such a nice start.
Let's have hope, you see, that it will all be for a good reason and it will all be fine or really just easily changeable. Let's all just hope it's really easily changeable. I think that's probably the easier one. And we've got an alternative title, which is much more straightforward, so it's not even like we have to make up a new title. So that helps. Just to note the ease of language, one of the things that I thought it might be complicated, because, of course, this is played with lots of contractions. It's got lots of little bits of words crammed together in interesting ways, which makes it feel flowy and natural, even though actually those contractions are not ones that we necessarily use today. So that was my worry, was actually people would be tripping over these odd sounds that they have to make. But actually, on the whole, people navigated them really well. And of course, with rehearsal, it just gives it flow like actual people talking. Whereas normally when I'm editing these texts, it's like, you almost never have any contracted words, and everyone are just saying the complete word that I need to say to get to the end of my sentence. And it's whereas this feels like, no, this is the kind of stuff people might actually say. I'll briefly go to Aaron before I go to Mark for a final thought.
Sorry, no, I did not have anything to add.
Oh no, your hand was just standing there. Okay, that's fine. Mark.
Yeah, kind of speaking a little bit on the ease of language in a way. So in Millicent and Quicksand's first scene, I think it's after the mask, when Millicent has just started to put on this like little performance of like, oh, I'm, so into sex and with other people. And she calls Quicksands my chicka bird. And then he says, she calls me chick and bird, the common names with wives that cuckold their old craven husbands. And dramatically, it feels very silly. It feels a bit like overly explicit. but it's very helpful to an audience, and that's also just useful dramaturgical knowledge. I don't know that that's something that, I've maybe read it in a footnote or something at some point, forgotten about it, but yeah, I think that is without those two lines there, I think it would be a little harder to parse for the audience, like some of what she's doing here. And the play makes it really easy, like even though we don't have that still in our culture. And similarly, the whole horns thing, it's a bit pet peeve of mine with trying to read early modern plays and trying to like make it presentable to modern audiences, is this weird thing that we don't do anymore of like talking about like horns. You grow horns if you're cuckolded. It's something that, yeah, in other early modern plays, I feel like it can be hard to try to make those moments where they just kind of mention it offhand make sense to an audience. This play, because it does it so much, and especially in that mask, I feel like it makes that presentable, makes it easy. So I think there's those couple examples in terms of like audience knowledge. Like there's a lot that I think makes this play like easy to get as an audience.
That is the mask. That is really in favour of the mask. Is the fact that you have 4 different horned creatures coming in, and someone makes an explicit reference to the thing, and it's all joining those things together. That's an excellent point. Yeah, and I like this. Okay, so it's a clean sweep for Brome. I'm so sorry.
Swept you off your feet.
Yeah. For today, I think it's fair to say tomorrow we are going to hit the material that we were fearing, and we will see how to navigate that then. All that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers. You too can become a reader. You can join us and read plays of differing levels of complexity and or problematicness with us in these Zoom rooms. Sign-up sheets are available on beyondshakespeare.org in our exploring session page. So yes, you get involved. You can do these things. But to thank the readers who are here at this present time, thank you very much, everyone, for your wonderful reading, and goodbye. My heart even trembles.